Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I want to share a story that I don't talk about a lot. It's a lot easier in the social media space to talk about the wins and the victories and the books that we've written, the success stories. That's a lot more fun to talk about. But it's not a completely accurate view of the of what's occurred in my entrepreneurial journey. There's been a number of really big failures. And I think there's a lot to learn more from our failures than there is from our successes, right? A lot of times when we have success, we attribute it to skill. When we fail, we tend to attribute it to bad luck, right? Well, sometimes, in most instances, the reason we fail isn't because of luck. It's a skill issue. You just weren't good enough, or you were doing the wrong things, or focusing in the wrong areas. And for me, one of my biggest entrepreneurial failures was, it's hard to talk about because it wasn't my business that I destroyed. It was my friends. And I think that makes it even harder in a way because it was somebody else's baby, somebody else's dreams. And so the backstory here is my buddies, they had started a business. I won't get into the details of like what the business was or anything like that, but they had started, it was a very cool business model, and they were struggling for years to get it to scale and to grow. And I had just come off a string of pretty good like entrepreneurial victories. I had built and sold a couple things, and I was feeling good. I was feeling like I could do no wrong. And so when they asked for some help in kind of turning the business around, I was like, yeah, that's easy. I can do this, right? Like this is what happens sometimes when you're met with immediate success in a domain, is that you tend to overestimate your capacity, your capability. I was wrongly attributing a lot of skill to my successes, when in reality, I had a lot more luck than I even realized. And it wasn't until I dove into this business model to try and like help turn it around that a lot of those deficiencies were starting to be known. And so for 2 years, I worked on this thing and tried to turn the business around and just couldn't ultimately do it. And there's a lot of reasons why that was. But what I want to share today is just the biggest reason that I think about a lot to this day. It was I wasn't willing to do the things that I had previously done in my own businesses. And what I mean by that was I viewed my role fundamentally different than how I viewed it when I was building my own businesses. When I was building my own things, I was wearing every single hat. I was working around the clock. I was grinding. If I needed to fill in for somebody on the front lines and do this task, I would do it. If I needed to be in the back office doing something, I would be there, right? I was willing and ready at all hours of the day to jump in and do the work. When I started working for my friends and helping them with their business, I viewed my role as almost more of a mercenary than a missionary. When it was my business, I was a missionary. I was devoted to the cause. But for them, I was just a mercenary. I was just a guy that being paid to come in and fix a thing. So I was more of an employee, a W-2. And I wasn't willing to do the same things. I wasn't showing up in the same way. And the way that this manifested, I believe, most noticeably was I viewed my role as like CEO, as leader, as the general, delegating to the troops. And I was pointing out all the things that everybody else needed to do and all the systems, but I wasn't really leading by example. And again, this was like the cockiness of having come off of victories and being like, oh, you just have to listen to me. I know exactly what you guys got to do and everything's going to be fine. And so I would come in and I'd point these things out, but I wasn't willing to get into the weeds and lead by example. And the truth is that your business is only as good as the leadership. And my leadership in that domain, it was freaking horrible. It wasn't what the business needed. Now, the business was going to fail, I think, regardless, because now that I have more time and experience looking back, I think the model was fundamentally flawed. And I should have seen that at the time. But I was just so blinded. Like I was just blinded by hubris and the belief that I had more skill than I really did. And that, more so than anything, I want to share this story with you guys today because this can happen not just in this instance of helping somebody else's business, but I've seen it happen as in my own businesses as I ascend to different levels of success. So as you ascend, maybe, in the beginning you're struggling, and then you get to your first 6-figure month or your first 6-figure year, and you're like, heck yeah, success, right? You start to hire people, and you start to hire yourself out of roles that you used to hate to do. And now you are just unwilling to do those things or even to look at them. For a lot of people, where I see this is in one of two areas typically. It's either in the financial mechanisms of your business. Like you get a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CFO, and then you just abdicate full responsibility. And you're like, I don't want to look at that anymore because I hate the financial side. And so you just give up full control to somebody else. Or the other way that I see this manifest is in marketing. People will outsource to marketing agencies. Hey, you grow my business for me. I just want to focus on fulfillment, right? In both of those cases, what ends up happening is that you're no longer willing to do the things that you were doing to become successful. You start abdicating and outsourcing your confidence and your competence. And what ends up happening is your business starts to struggle because you are no longer doing the things that got you to where you are. And it's a subtle thing that starts to happen. It's a subtle shift in your mindset and how you're showing up for your team, when it's like, oh, that person didn't show up for the shift, and you're like, well, I'm not doing it, right? Like once you find yourself in that place of like, oh, I'm not willing to do that thing, it's a pretty surefire sign that your business is going to go through a period of stagnation, if not decline. Now, that's not to say that you should hop into those roles and take over. Like when things are on fire, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should hop into there, but the willingness to get back in there and do those tasks, I think, is a hallmark sign of a business and a founder that is still ready to do what's necessary to achieve growth. And the truth is, I wasn't in that place for my friend's business, and I didn't have the self-awareness, the humility at the time to be able to rightly assess that. I probably still don't really have the humility to be able to assess that, but I can look back and judge past Anthony and his activities and see where he was lacking. The secret to being, I think, successful in business, though, is to shorten the gap as much as possible between current you and past you, and your ability to objectively measure the performance of past you. So I can objectively measure the performance of past Anthony 5 years ago, but if I could objectively measure the performance of past Anthony yesterday, just think about how much quicker we can grow and we can improve. And so that's the question that we have to ask ourselves is like, you're probably comfortable judging past you from maybe 6 months ago, but are you willing to judge what you're doing yesterday and to look at it objectively and say, I'm not showing up, or here's where I need to do better? And I think that's the secret to improving the learning looper, increasing the learning cycle, going through that motion as quickly as possible. And it starts with that self-awareness. So I just wanted to share that story because it's not something, we don't talk about the failures quite as much, especially the ones that really hurt. And that one's still to this day, like still very, very painful. But just ask yourself, like, where in your business are there things that you've abdicated, you've given up control because you're no longer willing to do those things. You don't want to deal with it. That's a surefire area to go look at right now because it's probably where your business is first going to fall apart. And I don't want that for you. So do not make my mistakes. Tune into the other podcasts as we talk about all my other mistakes and some of the victories along the way. If you want to learn more, go to join the newsletter. I don't know if you guys know this, but we put out a weekly newsletter, The Hyper-Focused Entrepreneur. I think we have like 25,000 people subscribed to that. So go join that. You can get just free weekly business insights delivered straight to your inbox. Go to Anthony Vicino /newsletter. Join us. We'd love to have you. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.